Captain Jack Morgan stood on the bridge of the HSS Intrepid and stared at the vast emptiness of space through the main viewport. His ship was old, 40 years old to be exact. In a time when most fleet vessels were replaced after 15 years of service, the Intrepid was ancient history. The metal beneath his boots had been walked on by 3 generations of space sailors. "Captain, incoming transmission from Fleet Command," called out Communications Officer Lisa Dunn from her station. Her console was a mix of holographic displays and physical buttons, another sign of the ship's outdated design. "Put it through," Morgan said, straightening his worn uniform jacket. The main screen flickered to life, showing the stern face of Admiral Wilson. Even through the slightly fuzzy transmission, Morgan could see the man's annoyance. "Captain Morgan, your patrol route is being adjusted. We need you to check on a mining colony at Helios 4. They've missed 2 scheduled check-ins." Morgan nodded. "Any signs of trouble, sir?" The Admiral's expression suggested he found the question unnecessary. "It's probably just their comm equipment failing again. All our actual combat vessels are engaged in fleet exercises near Saturn. Your ship is the only one available." The way he said "ship" made it sound like jump keep. "We'll set course immediately, sir." "Good. And Morgan, try not to break down on the way there." The transmission cut off before Morgan could respond. Behind him, Lieutenant Sam Reed, his executive officer, let out a snort. "He's such a charmer." Morgan turned to face his XO. Reed was young, too young to be stuck on an outdated patrol vessel. But a bar fight with an admiral's son had ended his promising career on newer ships. "Plot a course for Helios 4, maximum speed," Morgan ordered. Reed raised an eyebrow. "Maximum speed? That's ambitious. Should I warn engineering that we're going to attempt more than half power?" "Just do it, Sam." As Reed turned to the navigation station, Morgan gazed around his bridge. The Intrepid was a patchwork of old and slightly less old technology. Where modern ships had neural interfaces and holographic control systems, the Intrepid still used physical screens and manual input. The newer ships had energy shields. The Intrepid relied on thick armor plating. Fleet Command called it obsolete. Morgan called it reliable. The turbolift doors slid open with a whine that suggested they needed oiling. Chief Engineer Thomas Rayleigh stepped onto the bridge, his hands stained with engine grease. "I hear we're heading to Helios 4, Rayleigh said, his voice carrying the distinctive accent of the Mars colonies. "Any chance we'll see some action? These engines need a good run." Morgan shook his head. "Just a routine checkup on some miners who forgot to call home." "Pity," Rayleigh said, looking disappointed. "The old girl needs to show off sometimes." The old girl was what Rayleigh called the ship's massive fusion engines, technology that had been replaced by quantum drives on newer vessels. The Intrepid's engines were louder, less efficient, and required constant maintenance. But they were also nearly impossible to disable with standard electronic warfare. "Captain," Reed called out from the navigation station. "Course plotted. Travel time to Helios 4 is 23 hours at full speed." "Make it so," Morgan said, settling into his captain's chair. It creaked under his weight. Another small reminder of the ship's age. As the Intrepid's engines rumbled to life, Morgan felt the familiar vibration through the deck plates. Modern ships were silent, smooth. The Intrepid announced her movements like an old woman complaining about her joints. Dinner in the officers' mess was a quiet affair. Morgan sat with Reed, Rayleigh, and Dr. Alex Martinez, the ship's science officer. Martinez was picking at her food, standard fleet rations that tasted like cardboard with salt. "So, another milk run," Martinez said, breaking the silence. "Check on some miners, file a report, back to patrol." Reed nodded. "Admiral Wilson made it clear we're only getting this assignment because all the real warships are busy." "Real warships," Rayleigh muttered. "Those fancy new vessels would fall apart if you looked at them wrong. Give me solid metal and manual controls any day." Morgan smiled. Rayleigh's defense of the Intrepid was predictable but comforting. The new Horizon-class destroyers are pretty impressive, Martins countered. Neural interfaces, quantum shields, AI targeting systems. They're a marvel of engineering. They're untested, Rayleigh said firmly. The Intrepid fought in the Belt Wars. She's taken hits that would shatter those crystal palaces. Before the debate could heat up further, Morgan's comm unit buzzed. He tapped it. "Morgan here." "Captain," came the voice of Officer Dunn. "We're picking up a distress signal from Helios 4. It's automated, no voice communication." Morgan stood up. "I'm on my way to the bridge." The main screen showed the distress beacon's data. It was simple, just a standard emergency code with no details. The kind of thing that would activate if a colony's systems detected a serious problem. "How far out are we?" Morgan asked. 17 hours, Reed replied. Morgan frowned. "Push the engines. I want to be there in 15. Riley looked up from his engineering station. "The old girl won't like that." "She doesn't have to like it. Just make it happen." As the crew adjusted their course and speed, Morgan felt a familiar tension building in his shoulders. Years of experience had taught him to trust his instincts, and right now, they were telling him something was wrong. Mining colonies didn't just go silent, not without a reason. "Any other ships in the area?" Morgan asked. Reed checked his console. "Nothing on long-range scanners. We're the only fleet vessel within 2 days' travel." Of course they were. The Intrepid always drew the lonely assignments, the edge of settled space, the forgotten colonies, the places deemed unimportant. Until they suddenly became important. Morgan stared at the blinking distress signal on the screen. "All hands to standard alert status. I want all systems checked and battle-ready." Reed looked surprised. "Battle-ready? For a mining colony checkup?" "Call it a drill if it makes you feel better," Morgan replied. "But I want this ship prepared for anything." As the alert status changed from green to yellow, the bridge lighting dimmed slightly. Crew members moved with new purpose, running diagnostics and preparing systems that hadn't seen real action in years. Morgan returned to his chair, eyes fixed on the view screen showing their destination. Still just a distant point of light. The Intrepid might be old, might be considered outdated by Fleet Command, but she was his. And something told him that before this mission was over, they might all be thankful for her stubborn, antiquated reliability. Because in deep space, when things went wrong, they went wrong fast. And sometimes, the old ways were the best ways to survive. The HS Intrepid dropped out of faster-than-light travel with a shudder that rattled through its old hull. Helios 4 hung in the view screen, a dusty red planet with visible mining operations scaring its surface. "Scan the colony," Captain Morgan ordered, leaning forward in his chair. Lieutenant Reed worked his console, frowning as the results came in. "Life support systems are active. Power levels normal. But I'm not detecting any movement or heat signatures consistent with human activity." "Communications." Lisa Dunn shook her head. "No response to any hails, Captain. The distress beacon is still active. But that's it." Morgan stood up and walked to the front of the bridge. Something wasn't right. A mining colony of 500 people doesn't just disappear. "Prepare a landing party," he decided. "Reed, you're with me. Rayleigh too. We might need an engineer. Dr. Martins, bring medical equipment." "Sir," Reed said cautiously, "protocol suggests we should wait for backup when a colony goes dark." Morgan turned to his XO with a grim smile. "And how long would that take?" 3 days at minimum. If there are people down there in trouble, they don't have 3 days. Reed nodded, knowing his captain was right. "Officer Dunn, you have the bridge," Morgan said as he headed for the turbolift. "Keep the engines hot. If we don't check in every 30 minutes, take the ship out of orbit and call for reinforcements." The landing shuttle was another example of the Intrepid's outdated equipment. Where newer ships had sleek, automated drop pods, the Intrepid used a bulky craft that required manual piloting. But as they descended through Helios 4's thin atmosphere, Morgan was grateful for Reed's skilled hands at the controls. They landed in the colony's main square, a wide area surrounded by prefabricated buildings. The silence was immediate and unsettling. Mining colonies were usually bustling with activity, filled with the sounds of machinery and people. Suits sealed, Morgan reminded everyone as they prepared to exit. "We don't know what we're dealing with." The landing party stepped out onto the dusty surface of Helios 4. The colony looked intact. No signs of damage, no evidence of violence or struggle. It was as if everyone had simply walked away. "Spread out," Morgan ordered. "Reed, check the administration building. Martinez, head to the medical center. Riley, see what you can learn from their systems." As the team split up, Morgan walked through the empty streets, his hand resting on his sidearm. He pushed open the door to the colony's mess hall and found a scene that made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. Tables were set with food, now dried and moldy. Cups half full of liquid. Chairs pushed back as if the diners had stood up in a hurry. But no people. "Captain," Reed's voice came through the comm. "You need to see this." Morgan found Reed in the administration building, standing in front of a large screen that showed a security feed. "I've rewound the footage to 3 days ago," Reed explained, pressing play. The screen showed the colony going about its normal business. Then, at 14:37 local time, every person in view suddenly stopped moving. They all looked up as if hearing something. Then they simply walked out of frame. Every single one of them. "What the hell?" Morgan whispered. "Captain," Rayleigh's voice broke in through the comm. "I'm in the main computer room. There's something weird going on with their systems." "Define weird," Morgan said, already moving toward the computer center. "It's like something was downloading data. Massive amounts of data. Personnel files, mining operations, Earth communications, everything." When Morgan and Reed arrived at the computer center, they found Riley hunched over a terminal, his face illuminated by the screen's blue glow. "Look at this," Riley pointed to a readout. "These energy signatures. I've never seen anything like them. Whatever accessed these systems wasn't using any Earth tech I'm familiar with." Dr. Martinez joined them, her face pale behind her helmet visor. "The medical center is empty. But I found something disturbing. The medical eye logged 500 simultaneous cases of unusual brain activity just before communications went down. Every colonist experienced the same thing at the same time." Morgan was about to respond when Officer Dunn's voice came urgently through their comms. "Captain, we're detecting a ship hiding in Helios 4's asteroid belt. It just appeared on our scanners out of nowhere." "What kind of ship?" Morgan demanded. "Unknown configuration. Sir, it's not matching any known design in our database, and it's big. Much bigger than the Intrepid." Morgan exchanged glances with his team. "We're heading back now. Prepare for emergency departure." As they rushed back to the shuttle, Reed asked the question they were all thinking. What could make 500 people just walk away? "I don't know," Morgan replied grimly. "But I think we're about to find out." Back on the Intrepid, the bridge was tense as the main screen displayed their mysterious visitor. The ship was like nothing Morgan had ever seen, sleek, dark, with strange protrusions that might have been weapons or sensors. Most disturbing was how it seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "No energy emissions," Reed reported. "If it weren't for its mass disrupting the asteroid field, we might never have detected it." "Are they scanning us?" Morgan asked. "Hard to tell. Our sensors can barely get a read on their hull composition, let alone what they're doing." Morgan considered their options. The smart move would be to retreat, report to Fleet Command, and let them handle this. But that would mean abandoning any hope of finding out what happened to the colonists. Before he could decide, Lisa Dunn turned from her station with a shocked expression. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the alien vessel." "Put it through," Morgan ordered, squaring his shoulders. The screen flickered, but instead of showing an alien face, it displayed only text. The message was in perfect standard English. "Human vessel. UAAV UWI is. You should note, your primitive TTK nanology KNNOTSAVU. A chill ran through the bridge. They know our language, Reed whispered. Respond, Morgan said to Dunn. Ask them about the colonists. Dunn sent the message. The reply came almost instantly. The humans from TAE mining facility, AAVBEEN processed. Their data and biological information, AVGBEEN ADDD to the SYPHER-8 coolicitive. Your vessel will never be processed. As the message disappeared from the screen, the alien ship began to move. Its dark surface seemed to ripple, and several sections of its hull extended toward them like reaching fingers. Evasive maneuvers, Morgan shouted. Get us out of the asteroid field. The Intrepid's engines roared to life, pushing the old ship into a sharp turn. Just as they cleared the largest asteroids, a beam of pale blue light shot from the alien vessel. It struck the Intrepid's stern, and instantly every modern computer system on the bridge went dark. Warning alarms blared as screens flickered and died. But the ship kept moving. The old manual controls still worked. What just happened? Morgan demanded, as emergency lighting bathed the bridge in red. Rayleigh's voice came over the backup comm system. They hit us with some kind of energy pulse. All our modern systems are fried. But the old systems, the ones we never upgraded, they're still working. Morgan gripped the arms of his captain's chair, a grim smile forming on his lips. For the first time, he was grateful for the Intrepid's outdated technology. All hands, he announced over the ship-wide comm. Prepare for battle stations, old school. Red emergency lights cast eerie shadows across the Intrepid's bridge as Captain Morgan assessed their situation. The attack had disabled their modern systems, but the ship's core functions, life support, engines, and basic weapons, were still operational thanks to their outdated technology. Damage report, Morgan called out. Chief Engineer Riley's voice crackled over the ancient comm system. Main computers are fried. Navigation systems down. Targeting computers offline. But the old mechanical backups are working fine. It's like they specifically targeted our digital systems. What about weapons? Morgan asked. The newer energy cannons won't fire without the targeting computers, but the old rail guns can be aimed manually. Morgan nodded, even though Rayleigh couldn't see him. Keep working on getting our systems back. Reed, what's our status with the alien vessel? Reed was hunched over a physical star chart, using an actual compass and ruler to plot positions. They're pursuing, sir, moving slowly though, almost like they're curious. Or they think we're crippled, Morgan said, which we partly are. The Intrepid shuddered as another beam from the alien ship glanced off their hull. This time, the blow felt different. They're testing us, Dr. Martinez observed from her station. She had been analyzing sensor data from before their systems were hit, seeing what still works after their first attack. Morgan stood up and walked to the weapons station where Officer Jenkins was struggling with the manual controls. Have you ever fired these without the targeting computer? Jenkins looked nervous. Only in simulations, sir. And I failed those. Well, today you get a second chance, Morgan said, placing a reassuring hand on the young officer's shoulder. We need to buy some time. Morgan turned to address the bridge crew. Listen up. That ship out there just took out an entire mining colony. They've got technology far beyond ours. But they've never faced a ship like the Intrepid before. They think we're helpless without our computers. Let's show them how humans fought before we had fancy targeting systems. A small cheer went up from the crew. Sometimes, being underdogs brought out the best in people. Reed, plot us a course deep into the asteroid field. Densest part you can find. Reed looked up with surprise. Sir, without navigation computers, maneuvering through the asteroids will be extremely dangerous. That's exactly why we're doing it, Morgan replied. I'm betting that ship relies heavily on automated systems. Let's see how they handle an environment that requires human judgment. The Intrepid dove into the asteroid field, its old engines straining against the sudden maneuvers. Captain Morgan stood behind the helmsman, calling out directions. Hard to port. Now throttle back. Steady. Full ahead between those two large ones. The ship groaned in protest as it weaved between massive chunks of space rock. Behind them, the alien vessel followed, its sleek form gliding with unnatural precision. In engineering, Rayleigh and his team worked frantically to restore some of their systems. The chief engineer had rigged an old-style Faraday cage around one of their backup computers, hoping to shield it from whatever energy the aliens were using. Dr. Martinez had joined him, bringing data she'd managed to save before their systems went down. I've been analyzing their attack pattern, she explained, pointing to a hand-drawn graph. The energy they used, it's like it specifically targets digital pathways. Anything with complex circuitry gets overloaded. Rayleigh nodded, understanding dawning on his face. But our old systems use physical switches and analog controls. Much simpler electrical paths. Exactly, Martine said. I think these Sypher-8 beings evolved to exploit digital technology. Maybe they've never encountered anything as primitive as the Intrepid. Rayleigh laughed. Never thought I'd be grateful for budget cuts keeping us from getting proper upgrades. On the bridge, the pursuit continued. The Intrepid shuddered as a small asteroid scraped along its hull. They're still following, Reed reported, but they're staying further back now. I think the asteroids are giving them trouble too. Morgan nodded. Good. Jenkins, are those railguns ready? Yes, sir. Manual targeting is aligned. But without computers, I can't guarantee accuracy beyond short range. We won't need long range for what I have in mind, Morgan said. He pressed the button on the old-style intercom. Rayleigh, how are we coming with those special packages? Rayleigh's voice came back, strained but excited. Ready, Captain. Martinez's idea is brilliant, if a bit crazy. We've loaded the warheads with EMP generators modified to match the frequency we observed in their weapons. If they affect our digital systems, maybe we can return the favor. Good work, Morgan said. Load them into torpedo tubes 1 through 4. The Intrepid continued its dangerous dance through the asteroid field. Morgan had been a junior officer on vessels like this during the Belt Wars. Back then, they'd developed tactics for fighting in asteroid fields, tactics largely forgotten in the age of computer-guided warfare. Sir, Reed called out suddenly. The alien vessel is changing course. They're trying to cut us off. Morgan smiled. It was exactly what he'd been waiting for. Helm, full stop. Jenkins, prepare to fire tubes 1 through 4 on my mark. The old ship ground to a halt, nestled between two enormous asteroids that partially shielded it from view. The alien vessel adjusted its course, clearly searching for them. They're scanning for energy signatures, Martines reported from her jury-rigged sensor station. But our minimal power output is making it difficult for them. The bridge crew held their breath as the sleek alien ship glided past their position, its strange hull absorbing the little light that penetrated the asteroid field. Now, Morgan whispered. Jenkins pressed the firing controls. 4 torpedoes shot from the Intrepid's tubes, their minimal guidance systems locked on the alien vessel's heat signature. The Sypher-8 ship detected the incoming threat too late. It began to turn, energy weapons charging, but the torpedoes were already too close. All 4 warheads detonated in sequence against the alien hull. There was no traditional explosion, just pulses of electromagnetic energy specifically tuned to match the frequency of the Sypher-8's own technology. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, sections of the alien ship went dark. Its perfect movements became jerky and uncoordinated. Direct hit, Reed exclaimed. Their systems are disrupting. Now's our chance, Morgan said. Helm, take us in close. Jenkins, prepare the railguns. Let's show them what primitive technology can do. The Intrepid surged forward, its ancient engines pushing it toward the floundering alien vessel. As they closed the distance, they could see parts of the sleek hull beginning to ripple and distort, as if the ship itself was struggling to maintain its form. "Fire when ready," Morgan ordered. Jenkins pulled the manual trigger, and the Intrepid's rail guns roared to life. Solid metal projectiles, simple, unguided slugs of tungsten, shot toward the alien vessel at tremendous speed. Where sophisticated energy weapons might have been absorbed or deflected, these physical projectiles tore through the weakened hull of the Sypher-8 ship, leaving gaping holes. "Again," Morgan commanded. Another volley struck the alien vessel. This time, a bright flash erupted from within its core, and the strange ship began to break apart. "They're going critical," Martins warned. "Whatever powers that ship is destabilizing." "Helm, get us out of here," Morgan ordered. "Maximum safe speed through the asteroid field." As the Intrepid pulled away, the Sypher-8 vessel collapsed in on itself, releasing a pulse of energy that washed over the human ship but caused no further damage to its already disabled modern systems. The bridge crew cheered, but Morgan raised his hand for silence. "This isn't over," he said quietly. "That was just a scout ship. And now they know we can fight back." Reed looked at his captain with new respect. "What's our next moves, sir?" Morgan's expression was grim but determined. "We're going to salvage whatever data we can from that wreckage. And then we're going to warn Earth. The Sypher-8 just learned that not all human technology is easy to defeat, and I have a feeling they won't like that lesson one bit." The Intrepid limped back to the edge of the Helios 4 system, carrying both battle damage and a wealth of new information. In the ship's conference room, Captain Morgan met with his senior officers to plan their next move. "What do we know about them?" Morgan asked, looking at Dr. Martinez. The science officer stood and activated a hand-drawn diagram she'd prepared. "Based on the data we gathered before and during the battle, the Sypher-8 appear to be some kind of data-based life form. They don't just use technology, they merge with it. Like a computer virus with a body." Reed asked. "More advanced than that," Martins replied. "They seem to convert physical matter into data and back again. That's what happened to the colonists. They weren't killed. They were digitized." A heavy silence fell over the room as the officers processed this information. Riley spoke up next. "We managed to collect some fragments of their ship. The materials are like nothing I've ever seen. Their hull can shift its structure on command, and their weapons are designed to convert digital systems into a format they can absorb. Which explains why our older systems weren't affected," Morgan concluded. "They're too simple to be converted." "Exactly," Rayleigh nodded. "Our analog backups were too basic for their weapons to target." Lisa Dunn, who had been working to restore communications, added, "I've been trying to reach Fleet Command, but our long-range comms are still down. We can send short-range messages, but nothing that will reach Earth." Morgan paced the room, thinking through their options. "So we're on our own, with partial systems, against an enemy that can absorb digital technology, and possibly has more ships on the way." "That about sums it up, sir," Reed said with grim humor. Morgan stopped pacing and looked at his team. "Then we need to set a trap. We know something they don't, that their tech has a weakness. We need to exploit that before they adapt." "What do you have in mind, Captain?" Martins asked. Morgan smiled slightly. "They think we're running away, damaged and scared. Let's give them something to chase." Over the next 12 hours, the crew of the Intrepid worked tirelessly to prepare. In engineering, Rayleigh and his team created more of the specialized EMP torpedoes that had proven effective against the Sypher-8 vessel. Dr. Martinez studied the alien fragments, discovering more about their structure and vulnerabilities. "Their technology is adaptive," she explained to Morgan as they examined a piece of the alien hull. "It learns and evolves, but that also means it can be tricked." On the bridge, Officer Dunn had rigged a broadcasting system using parts from personal communication devices. "It won't reach Earth," she explained, "but it will send out a strong local signal, One that will look like we're desperately calling for help. Morgan nodded approvingly. Perfect. And the decoy? Reed pointed to a display showing one of the Intrepid's escape pods. We've modified it to emit the same energy signature as our engine core. From a distance, it will look like the Intrepid trying to limp away. Good work, everyone, Morgan said. Now we wait. They didn't have to wait long. Just 18 hours after their battle, sensors detected another Sypher-8 vessel entering the system. This one was larger than the scout they had destroyed, nearly twice the size of the Intrepid. Looks like they sent reinforcements, Reed observed from his station. Right on schedule, Morgan replied. Begin Phase 1. The Intrepid, hidden behind Helios 4's largest moon, powered down to minimal levels. Meanwhile, the modified escape pod launched, broadcasting the fake distress call as it moved slowly away from the moon. They're taking the bait, Martinez reported, watching the sensor readings. The Sypher-8 vessel is changing course to intercept the pod. Morgan nodded. Begin Phase 2. While the alien ship approached the decoy, the Intrepid quietly moved to position itself behind a cluster of asteroids. Every crew member held their breath as the massive Sypher-8 vessel passed nearby, its strange hull absorbing light just like the scout ship had done. They're scanning the pod, Dunn whispered, as if the aliens might hear her. They're picking up the energy signature. The alien ship slowed as it approached the decoy, extending tendrils of dark material toward the small pod. Now, Morgan ordered. Reed activated the remote detonator. Inside the escape pod, a small but powerful EMP device exploded, sending out a pulse specifically calibrated to disrupt Sypher-8 technology. The alien ship visibly shuddered, parts of its hull rippling like water. Phase 3, Morgan commanded. The Intrepid's engines roared to life as the old warship emerged from hiding. Its rail guns were already firing before the Sypher-8 vessel could recover from the EMP blast. Solid metal slugs tore into the alien hull, creating jagged holes. But this ship was larger and more resilient than the Scout. Despite the damage, it began to turn toward the Intrepid, sections of its hull reshaping into what looked like weapons. Evasive maneuvers, Morgan shouted. Pattern Delta 3. The helmsman executed the order, sending the Intrepid into a series of sharp turns and rolls that would have been impossible for most modern ships to perform without computer assistance. The Intrepid's old design, with its manual controls and sturdy construction, allowed it to move in ways the alien ship couldn't predict. A beam of energy shot from the Sypher-8 vessel, narrowly missing the Intrepid's engine section. They're adapting, Martinez warned. Their weapons are changing frequency to target our remaining systems. Morgan gripped the arms of his chair. Jenkins, target their weapon ports with torpedoes 5 through 8. Targeting, sir, Jenkins replied, using the manual sighting system. Fire solutions ready. Fire. 4 more specialized torpedoes launched from the Intrepid, racing toward the alien vessel. 2 were shot down by strange pulses of energy, but the other 2 struck home, detonating against what appeared to be weapon emplacements. The Sypher-8 ship shuddered again, more violently this time. Parts of its hull began to break off, floating away like dead skin. We've heard it, Reed said, but it's still operational. Morgan studied the enemy vessel. Despite the damage, it was still far more powerful than the Intrepid. They needed something more. Rayleigh, Morgan called over the comm. What about that thing we discussed? Is it ready? The chief engineer's voice came back, hesitant. Ready, sir, but I can't guarantee it won't blow us up too. It's our best shot, Morgan replied. Prepare to deploy on my mark. The Intrepid swung around for another pass at the wounded alien ship. This time, instead of firing from a distance, Morgan ordered them in close, dangerously close. Sir, at this range, if they hit us. Reed began. They won't, Morgan cut him off. They want to capture us, not destroy us. They want our data. As the Intrepid closed with the Sypher-8 vessel, tendrils of dark material reached out from the alien ship, trying to attach to the human vessel's hull. "Hold course," Morgan ordered, even as the crew watched those strange appendages getting closer. When they were almost touching the alien hull, Morgan gave the order. "Now, Riley, deploy the package." From a specially modified airlock, Riley's team launched what looked like a simple metal container. It drifted the short distance between the ships, making contact with the alien hull. "Pull us back, maximum thrust," Morgan commanded. The Intrepid's engines fired at full power, pushing the old ship away from the Sypher-8 vessel just as Riley's package activated. It wasn't a bomb in the traditional sense. Instead, it was a device that created a localized field of chaotic electrical impulses, random, unpredictable, and completely unstructured. For beings that thrived on organized data patterns, it was like poison. The effect was immediate and devastating. The Sypher-8 ship seemed to convulse, its sleek hull bubbling and distorting as if in pain. The tendrils reaching for the Intrepid retracted violently. "It's working," Martinez exclaimed. "Their structure is destabilizing." "Jenkins, all remaining torpedoes," Morgan ordered. "Fire everything we've got." The Intrepid launched its final barrage. With the alien ship's defenses scrambled by Riley's device, every torpedo struck home. Explosions rippled across the Sypher-8 vessel's hull. For a moment, the alien ship seemed to be fighting back against the chaos. Then, with a silent flash of light that temporarily blinded the Intrepid's sensors, it collapsed in on itself. When their screens cleared, the Sypher-8 ship was gone, replaced by a slowly expanding cloud of debris. The bridge crew stared in shock before erupting into cheers. Morgan allowed himself a small smile before raising his hand for quiet. "Good work, everyone. But this isn't over yet. We've beaten 2 of their ships, but there could be more. And we still need to warn Earth." Reed looked at his captain with newfound respect. "Think anyone will believe us when we tell them our outdated ship just saved humanity?" Morgan's expression was serious but proud. "They'd better. Because the Sypher-8 know about us now. And next time, they'll be ready for our old tricks." Morgan's expression was serious but proud. "They'd better. Because the Sypher-8 know about us now. And next time, they'll be ready for our old tricks." 3 days after destroying the second Sypher-8 vessel, the HSS Intrepid still orbited Helios 4. Chief Engineer Riley and his team had worked non-stop to restore enough of the ship's systems to make the journey back to Earth space. Captain Morgan stood in the makeshift lab where Dr. Martinez was studying the alien fragments they had collected. Pieces of the dark, strange material were spread across several tables, surrounded by testing equipment. "Any progress?" Morgan asked. Martinez looked up, her eyes red from lack of sleep. "More than I expected, actually. We've confirmed my theory about the Sypher-8. They're not just using advanced technology. They are technology, a form of artificial intelligence that evolved to the point where the line between data and physical form disappeared. Like holograms made solid," Morgan suggested. "More complex than that," Martinez replied. "They can convert matter to information and back again. That's what happened to the colonists. They weren't killed. They were absorbed, converted into data patterns." Morgan frowned. "Is there any way to reverse the process, to get the colonists back?" Martinez's expression grew solemn. "I don't think so, Captain. Not with our level of technology. The patterns are too complex." The intercom buzzed before Morgan could respond. "Captain to the bridge," came Reed's voice. "Long-range communications are back online." On the bridge, Officer Dunn worked frantically at her station. "I've established contact with Fleet Command, sir. Admiral Wilson is waiting to speak with you." Morgan nodded, straightening his uniform. "Put him through." The main screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Wilson's stern face. His expression quickly changed to surprise when he saw the state of the Intrepid's bridge, still damaged from battle. "Morgan, what the hell happened to your ship? We lost contact with you 4 days ago." "It's a long story, Admiral," Morgan replied. "But the short version is that we've made first contact with a hostile alien species called the Sypher-8. They destroyed the Helios 4 mining colony and attacked us. We've managed to defeat 2 of their vessels, but we believe more may be coming." Wilson's face showed disbelief. "Aliens? Morgan, if this is some kind of joke." "No joke, sir," Morgan cut in. "I'm sending you our sensor logs and Dr. Martinez's preliminary report now. The Sypher-8 are a data-based life form with technology far beyond ours. They can absorb digital systems and convert physical matter into data. They're a threat unlike anything we've faced before." The Admiral was silent for a long moment as he reviewed the information being transmitted. His expression grew increasingly concerned. "This is troubling," Wilson finally said. "Our newest destroyers rely almost entirely on AI systems and digital technology. If what you're saying is true, they'd be defenseless." Morgan finished for him. "The only reason we survived was because of the Intrepid's outdated systems. Our analog backups and manual controls couldn't be affected by their weapons." Wilson's face hardened into resolve. "Return to Earth immediately, Morgan. I'm calling an emergency meeting of the Defense Council. We need to prepare for this threat." "Aye, sir," Morgan replied. "But there's one more thing. We believe we recovered data from the alien ships that might contain information about their home world or fleet movements. Dr. Martinez is still working on decoding it." "Double time, Captain," Wilson ordered. "This could be the most important discovery in human history, and potentially the greatest threat we've ever faced." The journey back to Earth took the damaged Intrepid 8 days, limping along with its partially repaired engines. During that time, Dr. Martinez made a breakthrough with the alien data. "They're scouts," she explained to Morgan in his quarters. "Part of an advance force sent to map our territory and gather information about our technology. The main fleet is still months away, maybe a year. That gives us time to prepare," Morgan said, "to adapt our defenses." Martinez nodded. "And there's something else. The data indicates they've encountered other species before us, species that relied heavily on digital technology, just like we do. None of those civilizations exist anymore. They were all absorbed. But we're different," Morgan said. "We still remember how to fight the old way." As the Intrepid approached Earth, Morgan was surprised to see a full honor guard of ships come out to meet them. 5 of the newest destroyers formed an escort around the battered old vessel, guiding it to Earth Orbital Station 1. When they docked, Admiral Wilson himself was waiting in the arrival bay, along with several high-ranking officers and government officials. "Captain Morgan," Wilson said, saluting crisply, "your reports have caused quite a stir. The Defense Council has been in emergency session since we received your transmission." Morgan returned the salute. "Sir, have you begun preparations?" "We have," Wilson confirmed. "Based on your data, we're already retrofitting our fleet with analog backup systems. Engineers are working around the clock to develop weapons similar to what you used against the Sypher-8 ships." As they walked through the station, Morgan noticed people stopping to stare at him and his crew. Word had spread about their encounter. "The President wants to meet you," Wilson said casually, as if this were an everyday occurrence. "Your discovery may have saved our species, Morgan." Morgan shook his head. "It wasn't just me, sir. It was my crew. And the Intrepid herself." "Yes, about that," Wilson said, a slight smile crossing his usually stern face. "The ship you once called a relic is now being hailed as our secret weapon. The Defense Council has approved an entire new class of vessels based on the Intrepid's design. Hybrid ships with modern capabilities, but protected by old-school technology." Morgan couldn't hide his surprise. "You're building more ships like the Intrepid." "With improvements, of course," Wilson replied. "But yes, and guess who's been chosen to oversee the project?" Before Morgan could respond, they entered a large conference room where the Defense Council was assembled. At the center of the room was a holographic display showing the Intrepid battling the Sypher-8 vessels, footage from their own sensor logs. Dr. Martinez was already there, explaining something to a group of scientists who were taking notes frantically. Reed and Rayleigh stood nearby, looking both proud and uncomfortable with all the attention. A tall woman in a formal suit approached Morgan. "Captain Morgan," she said, extending her hand. "I'm President Liam. On behalf of all humanity, I want to thank you and your crew for your bravery and quick thinking." Morgan shook her hand, feeling slightly overwhelmed. "We were just doing our duty, Madam President." "You did much more than that," she replied. "You showed us a threat we never imagined, and you proved that sometimes the old ways are still valuable." As the meeting continued, plans were made for Earth's defense, new weapons based on Rayleigh's designs, training programs for manual ship operations, a complete overhaul of the fleet's communication systems to include analog backups. Later that evening, Morgan stood in a viewport lounge, looking out at his ship docked at the station. Engineers and technicians swarmed over it, studying its design, taking readings. Reed joined him, holding 2 glasses of whiskey. He handed one to Morgan. "To the Intrepid," Reed said, raising his glass. "The ship they called outdated." Morgan smiled and raised his own glass, until it erased a Sypher-8. As they drank, Morgan gazed at his battered old ship. The Intrepid would never be the same again. Neither would humanity. They had discovered they weren't alone in the universe, and that the dangers out there were greater than they had imagined. But they had also rediscovered something important, that human ingenuity wasn't just about creating new technology. Sometimes it was about remembering the old ways, about keeping the knowledge of the past alive, even as they reached for the future. And sometimes the oldest tools were the best tools for the job.